Okay, this is Brian. It sounds like we've started our recording. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Woodlands Metro Center MUD Board of Directors meeting for Monday, July the 19th, 2021. Appreciate everybody being able to attend our last remote meeting today. As in prior meetings, I'll briefly go through our remote meeting procedures and then perform a roll call. So to begin with, I need to remind everyone the meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we'll continue the practice of having a roll call to vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely this evening so that we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I'll perform a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name and your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with our board of directors roll call, Carl Kennedy. Carl, you may be on mute.
He dropped off, looks like.
Okay. Ron Wilson.
Present.
Gary Reed.
Present.
Terry Alcott.
Present.
John Cozart.
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum of our board present. We'll move on to Woodlands Water staff. Jim Stinson.
Present.
Mike Mooney.
Present.
Shelley Lawson Kennedy.
I'm here.
Maureen Bourgeois.
Present.
Okay, anyone else from Woodlands Water in the meeting?
Jeannie's here.
Okay, welcome, Jeannie. All right, anyone else from Woodlands Water?
No, but I think I missed my roll call. This is Carl.
Okay, thank you, Carl. We just completed the director roll call and the Woodlands Water, so we're moving on to the Sanderson River Authority staff. Ron Kelly.
Present.
Ed Shackelford.
Present.
Chris Meeks.
Present.
Matt Corley.
Matt Corley will not be attending the MUD meetings.
Okay, this is Brian. Anyone else from the River Authority in the meeting this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to members of the public, or actually we'll stop and go through any consultants. Do we have any Woodlands Metro consultants in the meeting that have not been called? If not now, we'll move to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public present in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well.
Dan Kokarst with the Howard Hughes Corporation is on the line today, the developer.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Maureen, does that cover everyone who appears to be logged into the meeting?
That's everybody.
All right, that'll complete the roll call. Carl, I'll hand it over to you to begin the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Harry, would you lead us in the invocation and the pledges?
Yes, I will. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag. I pledge of allegiance to the United States
of the United States of America, and to the republic
which stands
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance
to the Texas, one state,
under God, one indivisible. Bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for the resources that you've provided us. Guide us in our judgments and grant us wisdom in the decisions we make so that we'll be good stewards for these resources. We ask this in your son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Harry. Okay, did we have any comments from the public? I don't believe that we had any. Does anybody have any reason to suggest that we move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda before we vote on them? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. John Kozart.
I'll second Gary Reed.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, Brian, you want to poll?
This is Brian. If there's no further discussion on the consent agenda, we will call the vote. Carl, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to the regular agenda, resolution casting votes for the MCAD special district candidate.
This is the opportunity where you have to actually cast a vote for a special purpose district candidate. In your packet is information. I think you have 10 votes, and the two candidates are Arthur Bredehoff and Peggy Hausman.
Just a question, do we have to vote all or for either, for one or the other, or can we split them or what?
Brian, do you know, my recollection is it's one that whoever they select would get all 10 votes. Is that correct? Or
Jim, I believe
This
it
is
is.
Brian's. Yeah, I believe we have nominated, the Woodlands, of course, it nominated Arthur in terms of the vote.
We had nominated
They only
Arthur.
Yeah, and there's only a single spot here in the resolution in terms of where those votes are allocated.
Okay. Do we need a motion or just a vote?
This is Brian. We need a motion to adopt the resolution casting the district's ballot votes in favor of your preferred candidate.
Okay, this is Ron Wilson. I move we cast our ballots in favor of Arthur Bredehoff.
Terry Alcott, I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Brian?
This is Brian. If there's no further discussion, we will call the vote. Carl, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the San Jacinto River Authority Division report.
Good evening, everyone. This is Chris Meeks. There's a good recap of what we've presented to the trustees in the trustee summary. And there's a couple items that we'll discuss further as they're action items on the agenda. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to cover those.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Mike, are you, or Chris, are you going to do number 12?
Yes, sir, I certainly will. It's, well, I'm sorry. Number 12 will be done by Ed, but I'll take care of number 11 when you're ready.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, on item number 11, this is where in August, the trustees will vote on the River Authority Woodlands Division budget. And so this month, if there's any final questions, we can definitely answer those, but this is the part where we ask the directors to inform their trustee on how to vote in August for the budget.
This is Ron Wilson. I picked up one of the books, and my item number 12 is what you just talked about, the budget. Item 11 was the division report.
Okay, then my apologies. I'm looking at an old agenda, I guess, but then it's item number 12 as Mr. Kennedy stated. My apologies, but
Okay.
I'll find the right agenda soon. But if there's any questions on the budget, I'll be glad to answer those. If not, then we'd be looking for direction for your trustee.
This is Ron Wilson again. It hadn't changed from what we've seen before. Is that correct?
No, sir, it has not.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the budget? Anybody have any problem in having Ron vote for the budget? Ron, do you have any problem with that?
I'm ready to vote for it. Yeah, I guess we need a motion. Is that correct, Brian?
This is Brian. That's correct. There does have to be a vote to give direction to your trustee to vote for or against the budget.
In that case, I will make a motion that the trustee be directed to vote for the budget.
Gary Reed, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion, comments? Okay, Brian, go ahead and poll.
This is Brian. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the vote. Carl, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. I'm a little confused about item 11 on the budget, on the agenda. Is that, Chris, are you still looking for the agenda item there, or?
I am confused as well, but you have apparently the correct agenda. So if the next item is regarding the Trinity River Authority, that will be handled by Ed Shackelford.
Good evening.
This is Brian. So I think on there, on the agenda, Carl, that you're looking at, 11 just has received the River Authority report. So it had been pulled out of the consent agenda for whatever reason. So that's just, item 11 is just the regular monthly River Authority report. And then 12 was to act on the budget. 13 is the TRA water supply agreement item.
Right.
Okay. Ed, you going to present the deal on the Trinity River Authority?
Yes, sir. I'm going to share my screen, even though I know that several of you are on the phone. Well, I was going to. Okay, disregard that. I can't. It's on. So our presentation is on the Google Drive, and it was previously presented to you on May 12th in 2021. And this is to talk to you all about the Trinity River water supply option for Montgomery County. And the basic issue is we all know that the growth in Montgomery County is continuing to blossom at rapid rates. There have been several water supply strategies discussed and need to be considered going forward so that there is long-term water supplies for our growing population throughout Montgomery County. San Jacinto River Authority acquired a 50,000 acre foot Trinity River Authority water supply option contract back in 2013. It was initiated through the GRP Review Committee. And at that time, or continuing forward, we've had over the last couple of years, several of our review committee members say they didn't want to pay for it, but our contract is coming up for renewal. And so that's the basic issue. We've got to decide what to do with this TRA water supply option. On one of the slides, it projects water supply water demand going through 2070. Starting currently in 2020. And the one category that is consistently growing in size is the municipal category. And in 2020, that water volume needed to meet the demands of the county is 101,000 acre feet. And in 2070, it's growing to it's estimated to grow to 272,000 acre feet. So it almost triples in the 50-year planning period. So the next slide talks about the basic project. Transferring Trinity River water out of Lake Livingston into the north end of Lake Conroe, 50,000 acre feet per year. It's leased water, but it's firm yield water. So it will be there during the drought of record. Ultimately, to move that water, we would need pump stations and pipelines and canals. Today's estimate to run that pipeline is about $200 to $300 million. And so that's kind of the overall project, the framework of it. So let's talk about current things that need to occur. In our option agreement for 50,000 acre feet per year, we are currently paying around $250,000 per year, and that is borne right now through the raw water rate. Coming up, December of 2021, we've got to take that water supply option agreement and convert it to a service area agreement. We also need to start or initiate an interbasin transfer to bring the water out of the Trinity River watershed into the San Jacinto watershed. That will probably take a couple of legislative sessions to get the rights to do that. The lawyers have estimated as much as $2 million to accomplish that task. By 2028, we've got to convert that service area agreement to a water supply contract and then start paying a reservation for water. That reservation for water for that same 50,000 acre feet is estimated at $1.5 million per year. And it's either at that point, you're just paying for the use of the water. Now, if you think back to the slide that talked about the ultimate amount of water that's estimated to be needed in Montgomery County, when you look at what Lake Conroe can supply of 100,000 acre feet and assume that somewhere along the line, Lone Star is going to zero in on a groundwater pumping number. And let's assume for right now that that's 100,000 acre feet. So for a total of 200,000 acre feet, that gets you to the year 2050. And so any growth in the county and water demand beyond 200,000 acre feet will occur after 2050. But we do long range planning, and this is something that you've got to do as long range. Short range, the water won't be there if we don't plan now. So one of the questions that has been asked of us is, so what does that mean to you all as a Woodlands resident? And so we looked at the pricing of that based on current dollars. Between now and 2027, on the raw water side, to maintain to get it to a reservation, that's about 2 cents per 1,000 gallons. And if you think about an average user in the Woodlands is about 10,000 gallons per month, that's about 20 cents. And then beginning in 2028 and in 2028 on the raw water side, it's roughly 5 cents or 50 cents for 10,000 gallons on the raw water rate. And then if you look at the GRP rate to you at the house, and that raw water rate is system-wide. That's for all our industrial customers and also the GRP. So the GRP folks would end up paying between 2022 and 2027 another 10 cents per thousand, or excuse me, 10 cents per month, assuming the 10,000 gallons per household. And then 2028 and up until the time water or a project is started, you're paying roughly 20 to 25 cents per household per month to reserve and maintain that water option. So the reason we're talking to you about it is we need to make a decision this fall as to whether SGRA is going to retain this water supply option. And we talked to the trustees last week about it, and they asked that we represent this information to you so that you're familiar with it and you can direct them maybe at your next meeting as to how to vote. When we talked about this in May, I would say all of the MUD boards were in agreement that this was the right thing to do in preserving the water supply option. But they asked us to refresh memories. So I'm available for questions if you have any.
Okay, this is Ron Wilson. So what
Yes.
action are we going to take tonight?
Tonight, you were
wanted
just
us to take-
hearing the briefing again. And so next month, you'll be asked to direct your trustee representative on how to vote in September.
And actually, the way the agenda is worded tonight, if you feel like you have enough information, you could go ahead and act on it tonight, Ron Wilson and Carl, and the board.
Okay. Well, this is Ron Wilson. I don't see how anything's going to change dramatically in the next month. So I don't know of a reason we shouldn't go ahead and take care of it tonight. I have to deal with it next month.
Understood.
This is Harry Alcott. Are we making some type of a financial commitment long-term out to 2070? Is that what we're actually describing here?
No, sir. All you're doing is committing to the River Authority that you're okay with the expense to, I'll say, perfect the contract so that there's at least a reservation for water and to some time in the future.
Okay.
Can you pinpoint that sometime in the future?
Well, we talked about sometime after 2050, Montgomery County is going to need some more water beyond what can come out of the aquifer and beyond what comes out of the lake. And
no, what I'm asking is, if we vote to have our trustee vote for this item in August or September, whenever that vote has to take place, what period of time is that tying up the agreement? I mean, how often are we going to have to revisit this situation in the next 10, 15 years?
Ron, you want to take that, please?
Can I offer something? The only thing you're doing is making your voices to our board that you would prefer us to keep that water and not give it away. That's what you're doing. Our board then will move forward with working with the TRA and developing a reservation, a water supply agreement, converting what we have to a water supply agreement that would have to be done by 2028. And in 2028, our board would then have to take action on that water supply agreement. And I would assume at that time, 7 years from now, or whenever that's done, that the River Authority will again go to all of our customers and seek what your recommendation is. And because it's the River Authority who's making the financial commitment, it's not the MUDs or our other customers, it's the River Authority, and then we will eventually, the raw water rate would reflect that. So if you want to look at it as how far this commitment is by the River Authority, it's for the next 7 years until we get a water supply agreement in place.
Okay. Well, I see no reason why we should postpone voting on this for another month. Because, like Ron said, I don't think the situation's going to change any. So I would
agree.
I would entertain a motion to instruct Ron to cast his vote for it.
It's John Cozart. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Harry Alcott, second. Harry Alcott, second.
Okay. Very good. Any discussion? Okay, Brian, you want to poll the directors?
This is Brian. Yes, sir. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the vote. Carl, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hmm?
You.
Okay, next item is consider an act on appointing a stakeholder subcommittee member to participate in the SJRA engineering consultant meetings.
In your packet under this agenda item, we've got a copy of an email memo from Ed Shackelford that kind of summarizes what this stakeholder group will be looking at as we move forward with the wastewater consolidation study. We wanted to give each MUD an opportunity to select a representative to sit at that table. Just as a recap, the Woodlands Township will have a rep. Each of our MUDs will be offered a position. The Chamber of Commerce will be a rep. The Howard Hughes Corporation will have a rep. I think I've got everybody covered. So if you'd like, the Chamber of Commerce, yeah, I got them. Anyway, you'll get it's quite a commitment if you look at the memo and the meetings that are probably going to occur. But you have an opportunity to sit at the table and offer input. It will certainly go before our trustee boards and the MUDs before any final action is taken. So you will get an opportunity to weigh in on this topic, but we felt it appropriate to offer each MUD an opportunity to have a stakeholder position at the table.
Jim, this is Ron. If we didn't put somebody up, will that space be taken by somebody else or just left empty?
No, sir. we're not planning to do that, no.
I had an either or question. You would not use that space for somebody else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
But Jim, this is Harry Alcott. Why, as far as rather than individual stakeholders for each individual MUD, why not just a trustee from the WJPA, and then also have representatives from, I guess, Howard Hughes Corporation, Township, be a smaller representation, but that trustee from the WJPA, which represents all of the MUDs.
We felt like that this was a better choice to let each MUD decide if they want to be at the table. And I forgot, MUD 386 has agreed they would like to have a position as well. So they're on board.
Well, is this a one-time opportunity to have somebody on the committee?
No, I don't see it as that. If at some point in the future you decided you wanted to come on board, I guess that would be okay.
Well, could I offer on that one, Jim?
Sure.
I would think for this first phase, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, this first phase, which is going to last 12 to 16 months,
Correct.
going to be pretty intense. And having somebody come in 6 months into the process probably would be lost and have to catch up a lot. And so jumping in during this first phase probably would not work. Now, if there's a later phase that moves on and the MUD wants to participate in that phase, and yes, but I would suggest that this is the opportunity for phase one with Chris.
And I think I agree. And I guess the point is, if for some reason you didn't decide today and you decided to come in at some point in the future, we're not going to go through the effort of educating you for all the meetings that you missed, whoever was there. You'd have to come in at a disadvantage.
And when would we think this would start?
This is Chris.
I guess it didn't.
Yeah, we'd be
Go ahead.
looking sometime in August, potentially the week after the MUD meetings in August. We want to get the draft scope to the trustees. And once they take a look at it, we'll be looking to have a meeting right after that to kind of go through in more detail about the scope with the stakeholders before the approval by the trustees.
Okay. Harry, is this something you'd really like to do?
No, it's not.
Shit.
Well, that's why I was asking about the
emphasize
about the WJPA trustee when you talk about 12 to 16 months and very time consuming and intense. You know, who has the time to do it?
Yeah, and don't feel too bad if you can't. You will get the information that's in updates at the trustee level. If you're not available to commit to this, don't feel bad and don't feel like you're really going to miss out on anything, because you will be getting information at the trustee level and at the MUD level as this process goes forward.
Okay. Chris, did you say your initial meeting would be after the next trustee meeting?
Yes, sir. That's the current hope at this point in time, is to have it after the next trustee meeting.
Okay. Could that be deferred a week and give all the people, all the different districts, a chance to think about whether somebody really wants to do this or not, or really can or can devote the effort?
Yes, sir. When I said after the trustees meeting, it won't be the week of the MUD meetings for sure, because that's just a busy week. So it'll likely be after the MUD meetings themselves.
Last week of August.
Yeah, somewhere after the trustees meeting in August, but before the trustees meeting in September.
Okay, so we could offer up somebody next meeting, our next meeting.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And,
So give us time to meet in person and strong arm somebody, right?
and Jim, just to make sure, this is only a member of the MUD directors, right? There's not somebody within the MUD. It has to be a MUD director, correct?
That's the way it was envisioned, yes.
Okay. This is Ron. My suggestion for tonight is why don't we think about it a little bit more, and next meeting, see if somebody wants to step up and do it.
We're okay with that.
I think that is an appropriate course, because this is it's a pretty good commitment and pretty quick to ask somebody to do it without giving them a chance to think a lot. So this way we can, mull it over for 3 or 4 weeks.
And we're going to meet in person so we can maybe shame somebody into doing it next time.
That might be a good possibility.
Okay.
So if there's no objection to that, why don't we move on to item number 15, which is the attorney's report.
This is Brian. Thank you, Carl. 2 things I reported on at the trustees meeting last week. Mentioned to the MUD boards at the meeting this week is that the governor has announced that he will be lifting the suspension on the in-person meeting requirements beginning on September the 1st. So all the political subdivisions that have not already transitioned to in-person meetings in August will be required to do so starting in September. Also, legislative summary from this session is up on the Google Drive for y'all, as in previous sessions. It goes through and provides an overall summary of the session, as well as bills of importance that either passed or failed during the session. You'll find overall it was a fairly quiet session from the special purpose district perspective, which is a good thing. No significantly negative bills were passed in this session, so we're happy about that. Happy to answer any questions if you have them, but that's all I have of a general nature under the attorney's report. And then we need to cover item number 16, which is an annual item for the board.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Brian on attorney's report?
Here y'all got Brian. Brian, does that mean we're meeting in person in August or after September 1?
This is Brian. So the Woodlands districts have chosen, even before the governor's announcement, to go ahead and go back to meeting in person in August. So all of the MUD boards will meet in person in August before what's required by the governor.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Brian, I guess you want to go over item 16?
This is Brian. Yes, sir. So 16, you may recognize from last year. This was a result of the bill that passed in the last legislative session. I think it was Senate Bill 2, that requires for districts to now declare themselves as either a developed or a developing district for purposes of rollback tax rate calculations. The law up before Senate Bill 2 was that districts had an 8% rollback rate for operation and maintenance tax. You could generate 8% more in O&M tax than the year before without being subject to a potential rollback election. And then if you exceeded that 8% threshold, then a certain number of voters had to petition to actually force the rollback election. Well, as part of the legislature's efforts to further restrict the increase in property taxes across the state, they came up with this new framework that now separates between a developed and a developing district. And the metric for developed versus developing is whether or not the district has the infrastructure in place, water sewer infrastructure in place, to serve 95% of projected ultimate build out. We have developed a spreadsheet for all of our district clients to go to the engineers where they fill it out and confirm whether or not each district has met that metric or not. Donnie Reed with LJA handles that on behalf of the Woodlands districts. Woodlands Metro Center MUD does not meet that metric, so you continue to be a developing district. The result of being a developing district is that you keep your 8% rollback rate and that voters still have to petition to force an election. If you are determined to be a developed district, meaning you have that infrastructure in place to serve 95% or more of your projected ultimate build out, then you only have a 3.5% rollback rate. And if you exceed that rollback rate, you are automatically subject to a rollback election. There's no voter petition required. So that's going to be a more pressing issue for political subdivisions across the state if we continue to see this very active real estate market with prices appreciating at a pretty rapid clip, certainly more than 3.5% on an annual basis. So districts can be, or cities or other entities can be completely built out, and if they cross that threshold, then they would actually have to reduce their M&O tax rate in order to not be subject to an automatic rollback election. Metro doesn't have to deal with that. You're a developing district. You keep your 8% rollback rate. You just have to adopt a resolution, which is an annual resolution. You got to make this designation every year. But make the designation that for 2021, you are a developing district. And that's the purpose of the resolution under item number 16 on the agenda.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Ron Wilson, I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. John Cozart.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, Brian?
This is Brian. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the vote. Carl, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, what's, Jim, is this your, deal
think-
on number 17?
Yeah, that was a carryover from last month, so no action required or requested on that today.
Quick question, Harry Alcott. Jim, we were understanding that someone was going to approach the township about possible contribution in this thing. Do we know if that happened or anything?
Yes, I had a meeting with their staff Friday morning. Roland Johnson will be meeting with Bruce Reeser Wednesday morning of this week. So there are some discussions going on about a potential participation.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that item? If not, Jim, you want to give us your report?
Yes, sir. At the trustee meeting, I had a request from MUD 46 director to explore a potential of adding to our water bill, the MUD water bill, where a resident, customer could contribute to an assistance fund to assist either low income or folks struggling to pay their water bill. And Brian reported to the trustees that that's something that cities can do, but mud districts, there would be some problems with that. So we kind of put a pause on that concept. I also reported that I'd had a request to look through the Ian McCard reports that were done back in the 70s regarding during the pre-development stage of the woodlands, and maybe recommend that information be shared with the directors that either had not seen it or had been a while. There's some kind of pertinent information in there regarding groundwater and drainage. So I think Shelley sent all of our mud directors a link to those reports. We did report that we still working with TACUS regarding damage reimbursement, and through their 5 prime contractors, we did receive a $35,000 reimbursement directly from TACUS for one of their primes that had kind of gotten difficult to work with. So we're still working on reimbursement from the 4 others. Also, I reported that HARC has launched a website to work with the consortium on educating the public and residents about groundwater and subsidence. We encourage you to take a look at that. They've also completed their report on where they recommend groundwater subsidence monitoring devices be installed throughout Montgomery County. We talked about AMI, the 2 poles that had been a concern for residents, and that we had a request from Scott Haynes to look at maybe all the MUDs participating in that relocation and cost instead of just the 2 MUDs where the concerns were occurring. So we'll be looking at that again next month. We did get a chance to meet with Congressman Brady's staff regarding the American Jobs Plan. I think the meeting went well. They're going to be working with their their DC staff on seeing what feedback and assistance they can give. We're also working on a short list of consultants and lobbyists to maybe help us with that, and working on a follow-up meeting where actually Congressman Brady will be attending in August. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Anybody have any questions? Okay, Ron, you gonna do the trustees report?
Okay, I'll refer you to the report in the package and Jim's report, but I got 2 issues I'd like to throw out. One is on the poles to be refinished. The question is, or to be moved. Somebody didn't like them, and whether that should be a cost to everybody or a cost to the particular mud district that has it. It's going to go back and forth. To me, fairness would probably say, hey, it ought to be a cost to everybody. On the other hand, there's several different levels of expenditure. There's the Class A, Class B, and Class C type fix. And if, as usual, I would expect that if somebody else is going to pay for it, you want the best, So I kind of have a problem giving somebody a blank check. Let's have the best, somebody else is paying for it. So I'd like a little bit of direction from y'all. My inclination is we might go ahead and say, okay, we'd share in the cost of the class, the cheapest one or the reasonable price one. And if they want the better one, then they can find it out within their own district. That'd be kind of my attitude toward that. I entertain any discussion anybody has on, or opinions anybody has on that. Okay.
Well,
my
I
opinion.
think that seems to me like that, was there any distinction in the poles when they were put up? I mean, who determined what was going to be put up?
I'd like Jim to answer that, but I'm pretty sure it was Amoresco, a combination of Amoresco and I don't know who else.
The locations were chosen primarily where property existed that was either owned by a mud facility or one of our partners, San Jacinto River Authority. So we didn't have to purchase land, and then what would be the best fit for the propagation study. So that's how the elevated the sites were chosen based on the propagation study, optimum locations, and where property existed that we could use.
Well, what is really the objection to the poles? Just somebody don't want to look at them?
It's each location, a couple of residents feel like that it's unsightly, and I think one is alleged that it will affect their property value should they be wanting to sell the home, and that's it.
What's the cost we're talking about here?
A couple of hundred, little over $100,000 a pole to relocate.
And it may go up to as high as 175. I think I saw it.
Yeah, and you know what, I'm stumbling.
One of the options.
I thought we had the information in the packet, but oh, here it is. Yeah, to relocate with 125-foot poles, and first of all, the new sites would be on park property that the Woodlands Township owns. So they're willing to accept the pole, but the downside is no matter what size pole we put there, the coverage is going to be less than it is now where the poles exist. So, and I think the option B we're talking about is about $187,000 each for each pole to be relocated.
And then what guarantee do you have that you're not going to have the same problem when you put them someplace else?
There's no guarantee, but I think the township staff has determined that these locations would be something they could utilize. It would be a dual use for the pole, and the field observations and the field analysis is that it would not be impacting homeowners where they're proposing to go.
Well, wasn't that also considered initially?
No, sir. The fact that people objected to those poles was not something that was on anybody's radar. And I did ask Amoresco after the fact. I said, couldn't you have given us a heads up that this might be an issue with homeowners? And they said they have installed hundreds, if not more, many hundreds of poles throughout the state of Texas for AMI systems, and they've never had anyone object to the pole being installed. So it wasn't something they had dealt with in the past.
So based on that, there's obviously not much problem with people thinking that it's a detraction for their property. So I don't.
And I've stated, I think it's important to go out and take a look at some point for the trustees and others to look at it for yourself, because if we choose to do this, it's a lot of money, and I think it's important that you have seen what it looks like in the field where it is now.
Well, could we get a couple sites to be able to do that?
Yes. There's only two in question. It's Lake Woodlands Drive and Kirkendall and, Woodlands Parkway in Kirkendall near the HEB, and then in Slash Pine near Water Plant 1.
Slash Pine?
Yeah, I think we've given the specific locations before, but I can have Shelley send those to you again.
Okay. So two poles in question here, one back by the HEB in Sterling Ridge, and the other Slash Pine near the wastewater treatment.
Yeah, the one by HEB is at a water well site, San Jacinto River water well site. You
Okay.
can see it from Woodlands Parkway.
Gotcha.
Jim, is this likely to be an issue at next month's trustee meeting?
As requested, I will come back with the cost sharing scenario in line with the way the initial poles were installed. You know, there's no, the system is working. It's just if you know, at some point, if we decide to relocate these, you know, it'll be an expense, but there's no, I guess it's important to make a decision, but there's no crisis in the way the system is operating right now. It is operating and functioning okay.
Okay.
Okay, that being the case, I don't think it's going to come up. We have to do it next month at the trustee meeting, so we'll put that on hold. The other issue from the trustee meeting is one of the trustees wants to vote on televising or recording and keeping forever the minutes of the meeting. Does anybody have strong feelings on that? I will say,
kind of wonder, Ms. Harry Alcott, I'm not quite sure I understand the reasoning why, and what's the expense, and why would we do that?
the word of the day is transparency. So I guess it's for transparency.
Our meetings are open to the public, are they not?
Yes.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
I think I know how you would vote.
I see no reason we need to televise it. It was already transparent.
Yeah, I will point out that one of you vote for is probably going to push on down to individual MUDs at some point. So this is the sticky wicket that you got to face first.
Mm.
Well, I think they're transparent because they are public and anybody can attend them. And the minutes are kept in perpetuity anyway.
Okay.
So they are available to be perused if somebody wants to. So what more do you want?
Well, what more does somebody else want? It's not what I want,
Yeah,
of course, but
somebody else
I know.
okay. I have what I think is the feelings of the board, so I'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
All righty. Anything to put on next month's agenda? Okay, well, why don't we adjourn?
All
Good
right.
idea.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Ron, Carl, Gary.
See you in person next month.
Yes,
Bye.
sir.
Thank you, guys.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right.